modern humans arose in Africa about 1 million years ago, and over the course of that 1 million years they've moved around Africa, and about 60,000 years ago a group of humans left Africa, migrated into Europe, Australia, Asia, down into North America, down into South America, and that is where the modern population of the planet arose from. Before 60,000 years ago, there were a couple of failed attempts. So there were at least 5 failed attempts where humans left Africa, went into Arabia, the Middle East, and then died out. One group did survive long enough for the subsequent group to find them. That was the Neanderthals. And the humans that left Africa found the Neanderthals, interbred with them, and you find that non-African people today, people of so-called European origin, they will have about 2.5% of their DNA of Neanderthal origin. Now, that's what happened over the course of time, and modern DNA is finding finer and finer branches of the human genetic tree, to the point that probably in the next 10 years or so, people will be found not by their race, but by their genetics. Genetics is actually going to do away with race, according to some people, and that's a fascinating thing to think about. So people have been migrating all across the planet since the dawn of time, since humans first moved out of Africa 60,000 years ago. And one of the reasons I got interested in this in the first place is because doing my own family tree research, I thought I was Irish, Irish, as far as you go back. But I go back far enough in my family tree, and when I get to about 1800, I have an English great-great-great-grandparent, I have a Scottish one, and I have a Dutch one. So where did these people come from? And it really got me thinking, because I assumed that I was 100% Irish, but my new motto is, you're not as Irish as you think you are. So it was very, very interesting to go back and realize that, no, I'm not a purebred, if you like, I'm really quite a mongrel. And then using the DNA testing, I found that one of these lines actually went back to Holland. So I'm not even British, I'm Dutch on one of my lines. And that brought me back to the 1600s in Limerick, the time when Cromwell came into Ireland and cleared all the Irish out and tried to bring all the English in. I found that he sent 50,000 people over to Barbados and the new American colonies as slaves. Now, I never realized this before, but apparently a lot of Irish were sent as slaves to the West Indies, and not just the Irish, but the Scots, who were beaten in battle by Cromwell, and also the English. So a lot of English people were actually sent as slaves to the West Indies. This was absolutely fascinating. It's kind of a hidden history. The interesting thing about the Irish in the Caribbean, certainly back in the early 1600s, is because the English started moving into the Caribbean around about the early 1600s, late 1500s, early 1600s, and in the early days there were a lot of indentured servants there, so people would actually sell maybe 4 or 5 years of their life as a servant in order to pay for their cost of migrating over to the New World. And a lot of Irish were among those indentured servants, and contracts were for 4 years, 5 years, 7 years, that sort of thing. That was in the 1620s, the 1630s. Then in 1641 there was the Catholic Rebellion in Ireland, and there were these atrocities which were widely publicized by a sensationalistic media, once again. A lot of them were true, undoubtedly. There was a lot of horrors on both sides, people being killed, women subjected to rape, etc. But it got to the stage where the backlash was Cromwell coming over and just decimating Ireland, conquering the land and trying to get rid of the people. Now, at that time then, this was the 1650s, the men that he captured, he didn't want to send the men to the West Indies because he feared that they would rebel against the plantation owners. So he's had an agreement with the men: you can go to any country in Europe that Britain is not currently at war with, and you can stay there in exile. That left their wives and children abandoned at home in Ireland. And they were the people that he rounded up, drove them down to Cork, shipped them across to Bristol, and then from there, transatlantic crossing over to Barbados, Connecticut, Maryland, and Virginia. And these were people who did not have indentures, okay? These were people who were, to all of intents and purposes, slaves. You'll read some books like O'Callaghan, Sean O'Callaghan's To Hell or Barbados, where he talks about the Irish being shackled and interspersed among the African slaves. Now, the reason they were interspersed was so that the Irish could not talk to each other. The Irish arrived in kilts because that's what they wore at that point in time. And because the sun burnt their legs, they were called redlegs. The redlegs are a group of people in Barbados to this day who largely keep themselves to themselves, and they're thought to be descended from Irish and Scotch slaves. Descendants of those English, the descendants of those Scottish, and the descendants of those Irish people that were sent over to Barbados, they are probably still alive today, and it suddenly occurred to me, we could actually use DNA to connect these people with their relatives living in Ireland today. And that's where I came across the idea of the Irish Caribbean DNA project. So that's this project that I've been running here in Birmingham for the last year or so. And we've had some very, very interesting results so far. And of the people that have tested in the study, the project, we find that some of them, their father's line goes back to an African man, and some of them, the father's line goes back to a European man. Similarly, on the mother's side, mother's line goes back to an African woman in some cases, and in other cases it goes back to a European woman. So it really shows you that we are a big mix of people, that people have been migrating since the time that they first came out of Africa. Even within Africa, there were huge, massive human migrations, the big Bantu migration, for example. So migration is nothing new. It's been around since humans had a pair of feet, which is a long time ago. It's the hidden history as well that I find particularly interesting, because I mean it's not that long ago, and it's really quite shocking when you think about it, that we had the abolition of slavery in 1807, or the 1807 was the slave trade, but the abolition of slavery itself was 1833 here in the UK. It took them an extra 30 years to do that in America, and it sparked a civil war. And then you had the civil rights movement in the 60s. So it really isn't that long since we've kind of freed our minds as a people, and we can think about things in terms of doing DNA testing, tracing our family trees. And the attitude is, look, you know, our ancestors had their time. What they did with their time was up to them. We have our time. What we do with our time is up to us.
No, it's so true. But I mean, for me, the scary thing is now with the financial environment that we're in now, and it is always at this time that the right wing gets their say, and then that becomes the headline, and people are focused on that, and that's when all the progress that people have made suddenly becomes, takes a back seat.
I know. You've seen that even with things like, America was doing so well under Bill Clinton and moving forward progressively. Then George Bush comes in and everything kind of seems to go back about 10, 15 years or whatever. And you just need some idiot from UKIP or the BNP to start shouting their mouth off, and that creates sensationalistic news which kind of hides the truth. So if it's going to be sell more newspapers or get more viewers because it's being sensationalistic, that's the tag that they're going to take. The thing about a lot of migration, I mean, I am a migrant myself. I have come into this country from Ireland, and I have worked as a doctor here for the last 25 years. Britain didn't have to pay my educational fees, didn't have to pay for my upbringing. I actually got all of those things paid for outside of Britain. So, if you like, the country has actually saved money by me coming in and working as a doctor here in the UK. That's something that people don't really talk about, but it's something that's very, very relevant. Because a lot of the people that are allowed in as migrants are middle-class, professional, working people. And they're not economic migrants. So, and that's the type of figure that we never really hear about. What percentage of the migrants who are coming in are actually adding something to the country? I came to the UK for a variety of different reasons. I was actually attracted by London and living in a big city. I mean, I came from Dublin, which is relatively big in Irish terms, but I was attracted of coming to a big city and mixing with a wide variety of different people from a wide variety of different backgrounds and a wide variety of different cultures. And you're not going to get that if you stay in the same village, in the same town, and don't mix with other people. So London has the attraction of being a cosmopolitan, buzzing metropolis, and I feel that my life has been enriched by meeting a wide variety of people from a wide variety of different cultures. Being a psychiatrist, I worked in East London in Hackney for 5 years, and I learnt more about being a human being from the people of Hackney than I did doing 7 years of medicine in Ireland. And that was largely down to the fact that they came from different backgrounds, they came with different life experiences, and they helped me look at my life through different eyes.
We are now approaching London Victoria, our final destination. Thank you for travelling with us. Please remember to take all your belongings with you when you leave the train.